Hey everybody, welcome to Mommy Geeks Out. And in case you didn't already know this somehow, I am a huge Star Trek geek. Like, yes, I am a Trekkie. Yes, it is Star Trek all the way, and Star Wars is kind of like, well, that's nice. I'm all about Star Trek. And so I do get like a little bit hurt feelings, like when people, are like, everything's all about Star Wars, blah, blah, blah. Because you can hate me in the comments, but I think Star Trek is so much better. And it's the 50th anniversary. And, which is kind of cool because I realized the Star Trek came out when I was like a year and a half old. Like, I'm going to be 49 at the end of this year. So I grew up literally with Star Trek, and my mom used to humiliate me, but now I think it's cute. Growing up, when I was very, very little, I was in love with Captain James Tiberius Kirk. I can remember being around 4 or 5 years old, and it used to be on Saturday nights. It was already in reruns, but it would be on a Saturday, and we only had one color television in the house and one black and white television, and I would get to watch Star Trek on the color television, and apparently I used to call Captain Kirk my captain. So I had a huge crush on him. And then my mom used to tease me in front of people, like if she had like friends over or family or whatever, and she'd be like, oh, her captain is on. She has to watch her captain. And everybody would like laugh hysterically because I was in love with William Shatner as a child. So, but that never ended. I stayed a loyal Star Trek fan my entire life. I am kind of bummed because I'm actually going to be on vacation. I'm going to post this on the day that Star Trek Beyond opens in theaters. I'm actually going to be on vacation, and so I won't be able to go to the theater on the day the movie opens. And normally I do that. I've done that with almost every... Sweet Willie's in the laundry room behind me.
In the house!
Yeah, Sweet Willie's in his house. I've done that with every Star Trek movie, not the first one, not Star Trek the Motion Picture, but since Wrath of Khan. And so I'm like really upset, but it's okay. I can handle it. I can go see it next week. I just have to try to stay spoiler free. My only other option is to try to get a bunch of the people that I'm going on vacation with to sneak out with me one night and go see the movie. I bet I could. I think there's some Trekkies in the group.
I think so.
Anyway, so without further ado, based on the title of the video, you can tell that today I am showing you my Star Trek Beyond Funko Pops that I just got from Entertainment Earth. The only thing is that my Spock is back ordered. Spock! So I have everybody I wanted except Spock. So let's start. Let's see. How do I want to start? I want to start with Chekov because I want to say how heartbroken I am about the actor that plays Chekov, Anton Yelchin. I'm probably mispronouncing his last name, as you probably know. He was killed in a freak accident last month when his Jeep rolled backwards onto him and pinned him against a wall. It is absolutely the freakest freak accident. I think he was only like 27 years old. I loved the way he played Chekov. He did a great job. I think everybody in the reboot, rebooting Star Trek was very, very scary, especially to people like me. And I actually had almost no problems with the reboot. Zachary Quinto's Spock is growing on me, but primarily it's his voice. Because Leonard Nimoy had such a deep voice and Zachary Quinto doesn't. And so somehow that's throwing me off. I don't know. But anyway, I think that he did such a great job playing Chekov, and and he had a bright future ahead of him. He was, just a great young actor, and I was just shocked, and that's just a horrible thing to happen. So here we go. Here is Lieutenant Chekov, who is, of course, just like the Checkov in the original series. He's Russian, and he is a prodigy. So he's there on the deck, on the bridge. He's there on the bridge of the Enterprise, and he's actually, I think in the first movie, he's like 17 years old. So it's really awesome. I mean, the Funko Pop is pretty plain. I have to say, this could be anybody, absolutely anybody, and it's really hard even to see his insignia because it's way up there. But there you go. That's Checkov. And I'm actually going to put these back in the box just for right now, even though they're going to go on my shelves. But just for purposes of, I don't know. So, and I should show you what's available from the Star Trek Beyond collection. And I haven't decided if I want all of these yet. So, what I don't have yet is I don't have Uhura. I'm waiting on my Spock. I ordered Uhura. She must be back ordered too. I also didn't order yet Checkov in survival suit, Kirk in survival suit, Crawl, or Jalen. So here you go. Here are the available pops from this movie. So until I see the movie, I don't know if I want these two. I don't know what their characters are like yet. And I don't just get them because they're, we're in the movie. Because I have to be judicious in my purchasing of the Funko Pops. Why, thank you, sweet Willie. He's closing the door because he's doing laundry. So next up is Scotty. And what's really interesting is that Simon Pegg, who also plays Scotty, is one of the directors and writers on the movie, which I think is really interesting. But Simon Pegg has a long history in movie making. Well, not long, but a great history in movie making. And what was that really funny? Paul. Did anybody see the movie Paul? It was about an alien. And Simon Pegg is in it, and I believe he wrote it. Kristen Wiig is in it. It's a really strange movie about these two British guys who are RVing across America to go to Area 51, and they actually meet an actual alien, and he's like a really inappropriate actual alien. So it's really cool. So this is Simon Pegg's Scotty. Again, not much distinguishing about these pops. I like his little swoopy bit on his hair because he does have that swoopy bit. And again, the insignia is way up there, but he's got his stripes on his shirt. I love the way he plays Scotty. What I don't understand, and I may someday make a video about this, is so with the reboot, of course, the way we handled some things is we're in an alternate timeline. But the alternate timeline has some changes in it that would lead us to believe, based on the butterfly effect theory, that just by killing George Kirk, and so making James T. Kirk fatherless in the movie instead of growing up with his dad, and so he has a different life, that this somehow changed so much in the world that Scotty is not in Starfleet. Or, well, he is, but he's like, out on this remote outpost, and he's being punished for something that happened with a dog when he was trying to do his transwarp equation, and I'm not sure that ever, happened to the original Scotty, and so I don't know, why that would have happened, and I don't understand. I'm making the video right now, aren't I? And I don't understand why Uhura and Spock would have become a couple because the timeline changed for James T. Kirk. How much of a ripple was that? That's some ripple. That rippled all the way out to Vulcan. So I don't get that. So are we to kind of like go back and say, oh, well, maybe all along Spock and Uhura were having a thing and we just didn't know it? Because I always kind of thought Uhura and Scotty were having a thing, honestly. Just saying. Just some strange commentary from me. So there's that video about how I don't understand how changing Captain Kirk's timeline changed so many other things in other people's lives. I mean, I know he's important, but like, how did that happen? So comment down below if you think that always happened to Scotty, or if you think that Uhura and Spock were already a couple always and we just didn't know it. I don't know. Just asking. Okay, so next up is Sulu, and I absolutely love the way Sulu's being played. And oh, look, he's got a little phaser. So John Cho, I believe is his name. I'm always like, I don't want to, John or James. So they recently announced, or he announced in an interview, and again, there's really nothing distinguishing about him. I mean, he's a Funko Pop, he's got the hairstyle, there's his little insignia, but he's got a phaser. Yeah. He announced in an article that Hikaru Sulu is gay. So a lot of people are freaking out because they're like, well, why in this alternate timeline is Hikaru Sulu gay? And blah, blah, blah. And so the argument is kind of flawed because people are saying, well, in the original timeline, Hikaru Sulu has a daughter, so he wasn't gay. Let's all stop and think about that for a moment. They never mention in that movie where we meet Tamora Sulu in Generations, she never talks about her mom. They talk about her dad. And Kirk says, when did Sulu have time to have a family? It never says, when did Sulu have time to meet a woman and marry her and have a child with her? They never say that. He just says, when did Sulu have time to have a family? So I don't think that negates Sulu being gay. But I do know that George Takei has some issues with them making Sulu gay in the movie, which I don't understand. So, I mean, I think it's nice that we're actually going to, have a gay character as a main character in Star Trek, because we've had a main character be everything else. Why can't we do that? Anyway, that's just my thoughts on that. So comment down below. Just in case you didn't get the whole thing there, you know what? Gay people have kids. So being gay does not preclude you from having a child. So anyway. And I love Sulu, and I really want to read the books about Sulu's adventures on the Excelsior. And I just haven't done that yet. I read like a ton of Star Trek books too. I'm like a Star Trek book junkie. Okay, so next is Bones. So Carl Urban and Chris Pine are the two casting decisions that I think were so incredible and spot on. And this actually looks like Carl Urban, and I don't know how you do that with a Funko Pop, but look at it for a minute. Doesn't that look like Bones? I guess it's the hair. And somehow, because maybe Bones looks like a Funko Pop because he's always so serious. And then you can see his little tiny insignia. So, of course, he's got his blue Starfleet medical uniform going. I love him as Dr. McCoy. I think he does DeForest Kelley proud. I think his voice, again, it's about the voices. I think he's got a good voice to play him. And I think he's done a good job of throwing some inflections into his dialogue that mimic, without doing like an impression of DeForest Kelley. He's doing some DeForest Kelley like stuff. And I think that's really cool. Really, really cool. And I really, really love him. And he's really, really handsome too, by the way. Loved him in Dread. Did you see him in Dread? And he had that TV show where he was a cop and he had an like a cyborg or android. No, he was like I think he was a cyborg partner, and that show got canceled. And I really love that show because I really love Carl Urban. Okay, so last but not least is my captain. It's my captain. So you might wonder, Mommy, if you loved William Shatner so much as Captain Kirk, how do you feel about Chris Pine as Captain Kirk? So I tried to go into this with an open mind, and I knew it was going to be hard to see somebody else play Captain Kirk. And here he is. Here is Captain James Tiberius Kirk. And he's got his phaser. He's got his insignia. There's his little insignia. Got his braids on his deal there. You know, he should have like a little dribble of blood over here. They should make one that does that, because when Captain Kirk used to get punched in the face, he always used to get like that little dribble of blood, and he'd be like, you know, to show that he just had a fight. So how did I feel, and how do I feel about Chris Pine as Captain Kirk? I love him. And if you go watch the first movie, by the way, I pretend that the second movie, Into Darkness, never happened. I'm just going to pretend that never happened. Kind of like with Star Wars, I pretend that Jar Jar Binks never existed. That movie was horrible. Bringing back Khan could have been a really cool idea, but Benedict Cumberbatch playing Khan was a horrible idea. Trying to hide that he was playing Khan was a horrible idea. The movie is horrible. That movie stunk. From what I understand, this movie is much better. But so let's just talk about the first movie. In the first movie, Chris Pine did such a great job of playing James Kirk completely transformed, because his experience of life was completely different than the Jim Kirk that we all know and love from the original series and the movies. But he still maintained a lot of the mannerisms of that William Shatner had. In particular, there's a couple of scenes where he walks onto the deck, the sway of his shoulders, things that he does with his hands, tilt of his head, and the way he sits in the captain's seat. He's mimicking William Shatner so closely that he became Captain Kirk. Like, he won me over because it was just enough. Just enough. He's not trying to do the Shakespearean, over dramatic way of talking. He's doing his own thing because he is different. He's a completely different, he's a street smart kid. He's a Weisenheimer. He's a troublemaker. He's different than the original Jim Kirk. But there are some things that still remain true. And that swagger and the way he sits in the chair and some of his hand motions and the way his inflection in some things that he says, he made sure that there's just enough William Shatner in there to make him Captain Kirk. And I think that is a tremendous acting job. I really think Chris Pine is an underrated actor. I really liked him in the movie that I can't remember the name of. Isn't that good? That's a good one, right? Where he plays, Jack Ryan. I love that movie. And I just saw a movie called Bottle Shock, where he plays, it's a movie about 1973 wine country in California. The awesome late Alan Rickman, who played Professor Snape, has a big role in it. And also Dances with Wolves, Kevin Costner. And it's about as California wine country is sort of coming into its own. And Chris Pine plays a hippie, the hippie son of the winery owner from Chateau Montelena, which I've been to Chateau Montelena, so it was really cool. And they do have very good wine. But it's the story of how they basically did a blind taste test with French wine, and Chateau Montelena you know, the French wine experts didn't realize that that was not a French wine, and they loved it. But he plays a hippie, and he's so good at it. I mean, he was so totally good. So I think, you know, I hope to see him in different roles. I'm really excited that he's in Star Trek. I hope this movie does well, and I hope we get more Star Trek movies, and that we can all pretend that Into Darkness never ever happened. But I'm very excited to finally have a Chris Pine as Captain Kirk Funko Pop, because he's my captain, and this captain is my captain too. He really is. So let me know what you think of these Funko Pops, and let me know. Try not to put spoilers, because I will not have seen the movie. So if you're going to spoil anything, please type spoiler and put lots and lots and lots and lots of spaces before you type in your spoiler. Let's follow spoiler protocol here. Let me know which was your favorite pop. I think my favorite pop, even though my favorite character, of course, is Kirk, my favorite pop is actually Bones, because somehow he managed to look like Carl Urban, even though he's just a Funko Pop. So I think that's kind of cool. And hopefully my Spock will show up, and my Uhura. I'm really bummed, but we'll do a separate video with them. And until I see you next time, please subscribe to Mommy Geeks Out. I am trying to upload more frequently here, and unless I'm on vacation, I am here every Monday through Friday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, live streaming, putting on my makeup, and talking to you about whatever happens to come into my head. We have a great crew that shows up most mornings, and we just talk about life and have a great time. So until I see you guys again, thank you so much for watching. Love you. Bye!